Dubey sir, now you can start.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back again this Sunday. And the speaker today is Mrs. Durga Nani Gadela. She has spoken to this group before, and she has been a regular participant of the Indore study circle. And Durga ji is going to talk on explorations of structure and nature of thoughts in Krishnaji's teachings. Uh, Many of you may not be aware who Durga ji is, so I'll briefly introduce her. Mrs. Durga Rani Gadela graduated from St. Teresa's College, Eluru in Andhra Pradesh, and completed post-graduation in English literature from Andhra University, Visakhapatnam in 1982. She also did her B.Ed in 1988 from Amritsar. She has taught in various army schools for a period of 12 years at different intervals. Presently, she is residing in Hyderabad after spending a few years in Port Blair, capital of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, with her spouse. She came across Krishnaji's books in the year 1994 and got very passionately connected with the teaching, which is life-changing for her. In a journey spanning 2 decades as a mother, teacher, and as a lay person planning to share her explorations, which were initiated and findings that she came across in one's daily life and in the mirror of relationship. So she is going to talk about the structure of uh, thought, exploration through structure and nature of thought in Krishnaji's teachings. So, Durga ji, very warm welcome to you, and we are thankful that you could spare your time and agree to be with us today. Thanks a lot. You can now begin. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Namaskar, all of you. Very good morning to all. At the outset, I would like to extend my deep sense of gratitude to the JK Study Center Indore Group for giving me this opportunity today to come before all of you to share my little bit of understanding, whatever that has been arrived at in this beautiful Krishnaji's teachings. So I also would like to express my sense of appreciation to the organizers of this group for conducting these sessions in such a nice way, in a beautiful way, where the atmosphere is always been very cordial, very friendly, and by inviting people from all over the world who are steeped in Krishnaji's teachings, and when they share their perspectives, and in this platform, in this wider depth of a breadth of platform, that is leading to deepening of understanding of the teaching. And I think that really gives a lot of pointers to each and every one of us, and that leads to collective understanding and maybe collective journey together. So I deeply appreciate for this. Yeah, thank you very much. So before going into the topic for today, explorations of structure and nature of thought in Krishnaji's teachings, I would like to bring our focus to what Krishnaji had to say about thought in the vast expanse of his teaching. And if you really look at it, Krishnaji is one of the rarest of the seers, who had spoken so much about thought. If you look into any other spiritual teachers or maybe of the Western and Indian Eastern origin, nowhere we find out so much stress that is emphasis that has been laid on thought. So first of all, I would like to bring all our notice to the statements or the derivations that we find very commonly in Krishnaji's teachings. So I would like to share my screen here a little bit of a few statements I have brought there. Yeah. this is regarding the structure and nature of thought. Before that, that's the beginning of it. But before that, I would like to a few quotations or few derivations of thought I had taken from the urgency of change. And I also read a few extracts from, Ending of Time, which deeply deals with more intensely about thought and the structure of thought, more directly rather. So I'm going to read out the few statements. I think this is going to refresh our memory or refresh our, reading of what Krishnaji had to say about thought. So the first one is thought is a response of memory, the past. The past is an infinity or a second ago. Say this we have been hearing, the past, the thought is nothing but it's a response of memory. And the memory can be, or many years or many ages or a second ago. When thought acts, it is this past which is acting as memory, as experience, as knowledge, as opportunity. So there is nothing new in life that way. And when something new is to be found, there must be the absence of the past. The mind must not be cluttered up with thought, fear, pleasure, and everything else. And here, the underlying point is new here. He says, whatever we do, whatever our, day-to-day living or whatever information we want, everything that comes from the past only, nothing new about it. Maybe out of habit, out of old knowledge, we act and behave in such a particular way. If something new had to happen, thought needs to be, mind has to be, first of all, uncluttered, and there should be absence of the past. Only when the mind is fresh, something new can happen. Only when the mind is uncluttered can the new come into being. And for this reason, we say that thought must be still, operating only when it has to, objectively, efficiently. So here he's throwing a large challenge to us. He says, mind has to be uncluttered, and for this reason, thought must be still, operating only when it has to, objectively and effectively, efficiently. So unless and until thought pauses a bit, so maybe something new can happen. And he speaks so much about uncluttering of the mind and all that. The brain is a source of thought. The brain is matter and thought is matter. Here, Krishnaji brings our focus from thought in general to the brain. The brain, and he's not saying about any particular brain, he's saying about the collective brain of humanity. The brain is the source of thought, and the brain is matter, and thought is also matter. So that's another very, very common derivation we have been hearing, but I don't know how much we focus our attention on that. So can the brain, with all its reactions and its immediate responses to every challenge and demand, can that brain be very still? And if you see here, from thought to be still, in the previous statements, Krishnaji has brought the challenge to the brain. The brain, can it be still? And he's also focusing about the nature of the brain. What is the nature of the brain? It immediately responds to, it's always reactive. The brain, I think if we can observe ourselves also, any new information or any challenge or anything, the brain immediately comes with a reaction, either yes or no, or like or dislike, whether love or hate. So brain has a tendency to be reactive, and its immediate response to every challenge and demand, can that brain be very still? So if the brain is all the time reacting, if the brain is all the time responding immediately to every challenge, so nothing new is possible. But can that brain be very still? So from thought, he brought it to the brain. And he's also not speaking about the one person brain. He's saying about the collective human consciousness, or maybe the brain in general. This really demands tremendous alertness and discipline. The watching that brings its own discipline, not imposed or brought about by your unconscious desire to achieve a result or a pleasurable new experience. And with Krishnaji's statements, they always come with a lot of riders. On the face of it, he seamlessly goes from one statement to the other, But at the same time, he keeps giving a lot of riders also there. He says, and that really demands tremendous alertness and discipline. And he says, only watching the thought, watching the brain, that is the maybe slightest of the key, slightest of the hint he's saying. And it needs tremendous discipline and alertness also. And it is and not imposed or brought about by your unconscious desire to achieve a result. See, there is again another writer here. He says, if you are keen to achieve some result, or if you want to if you're keen for some kind of a pleasurable new experience, that's also not going to happen. So therefore, during the day, thought must operate effectively, sanely, and also watch itself. He says, thought, it has to function in the daytime, and it has to effectively and sanely. And many times he says, can thought act? Can it be active where functional things are concerned, very practical things are concerned, like cooking a meal or going from one place to the other, your day-to-day small jobs, for that thought is required, and it has to act effectively and sanely. But where the deeper issues are concerned, deeper problems are concerned, can thought be still for a while without jumping to its own conclusions, and can watch itself? So that's a challenge he's throwing at us. Thought created the thinker, and the thinker says, I'm independent of thought. And here, this is much more poignant statement here. And he says, thought created the thinker, that is the me, and the thinker says, I'm independent of thought. And the thinker says, I identify myself with this and with that, therefore I'm independent of thought. Thinker starts identifying, and the thinker, maybe it takes a long time before all these things really get absorbed in our consciousness. And he says, and he very categorically he's saying here, the thought is created, the thinker is put together by thought. He very categorically he's saying, but I identify that, and the thinker says, I identify myself with this and that, and therefore I'm independent of thought. He's refusing to see the fact that he's created by the thinker is being put together by thought. So the obvious thing is, thought has created this tent. The tent is independent of thought, right? Thought has created the thinker, and the thinker says, by Jove, I'm independent, I'm original, I'm the soul, I'm God, I'm Brahman, I'm everything. But thought has put him together. So I think this is a major challenge, or we can say the crux of the Krishnaji's teachings. He says the thinker, the analyzer, the observer, the me. He says it's all put together by thought. But the thinker feels he's independent of that, and he has become something else. He feels he's independent, he's original, he's the soul, he's Brahma, everything. So without understanding all this structure, maybe that's what Krishnaji is intending to. So he, time and again, in his vast expanse of thoughts, at these points, he brings them either in the beginning or in the end. And but thought has put him together. So that's one of the challenges, is maybe challenging statements that is for us. And if you look at the Krishnaji's teachings, and he also says so many things about thought being fragmentary in nature, thought being very mechanical, and thought can only act in patterns. So all these things we keep hearing, we keep reading. Now that we all are very familiar with Krishnaji's texts, any of the maybe 5-10 books you pick up, these things very prominently we come across in Krishnaji's teachings. And he says thought is very divisive by nature. And thought, it has created the nationalities, the Indian, the American, the European, all these nationalities are being created by thought. And it has put together the religions, the Christianity, Islam, or, Hindu and everything. And we start identifying with that. So that identification, that kind of a divisive nature that has been put together by thought. And it is fragmentary by nature. It is very divisive, and it is mechanical. So unless and until the structure of thought is not understood, there's no way any new understanding to be arrived at or settling in. And the beauty of Shriji's teaching is he not only throws the challenges, but he also gives some kind of a answers also. But provided if one is really looking for them, and he says, and afterwards in that text, ending of time and urgency of change, there's whole lot of very intense discussions are being or we can read them. So he says, can thought see the totality of it? So thought in instead of having all these things, can it see the totality of it? That is a major challenge. And the totality being very whole, sane, healthy, rational, and objective. So can thought ever be able to perceive the glimpse of that? So and for that, the perceiver, he says about the perceiver, the one who has to perceive this needs to understand, oneself. There he says brings a subject of self knowledge. Only in self knowledge, unless and until one is aware of, one knows what one is. That if everything is put together by thought, so how are we going to explore all these things? How are we going to ever perceive any of these things? So he says, but this all can be learned. This all can be learned, and this can be learned. And he uses the word perceiver. Only in the perception of these things, and seeing the validity of these things, maybe some lights of understanding starts dawning in and setting in oneself. So here he says about the self knowledge, and he says, and he keeps on time and again he portrays and projects, the world we are living in, how the world has been divided into, small pieces, the countries, the nations, all small things, and religions and all these things. And on top of that, the inner confusion we face in our own selves, the stream of confusion, the stream of anxiety, the tension. That's what part of our lives are. We may be having some nice moments sometimes here and there, but in totality, that's how the world is. So there may be some fine points about it, but see, Krishnaji says that's how the picture of the world. That's what he portrays with his broad strokes of you can say his acumen or vision and all. So in order to understand the stream of all these strong emotions, all this how all this is happening. So only thing is that watchful awareness, the passive awareness, that is only key. So can thought pause for a while uh, and reflect on all these things. And for that also he says a lot of leisure is required in one's life. Leisure being, active interest as well as some kind of a curiosity. And if one is all the time cluttered with a lot of activities, one brain is all the time, immersed in so many issues of oneself. That's what our lives are. Mostly our lives are so much self-oriented. Thought, my family, me, my children, everything about me. That's how our lives revolve around. So he says the stream of selfishness, the stream of, all the anxiety, the sorrow, the confusion, the misery. So in order to understand that, can one take pause for a while, reflect on all these things? So that is the totality of the seeing he's saying. So that can be learned. That can be learned, provided one is actively interested in this, and provided one is not asking for any kind of a reward, or not fearful also. So then maybe something else may some different kind of a understanding may start setting in. So this is the basic structure I thought we all need to focus upon where thought is concerned. And now I would like to share my screen with some other small 10 segments I have written here. And this is going to be I would like to, acknowledge before all of you. This is going to be a very humble presentation. And 10 points I have written here. So those are basically from my study of commentaries of living, all three series. where Krishnaji directly addresses our problems. Sometimes it's very easy to get lost in the huge and beautiful vocabulary of Krishnaji. But when we read Krishna commentaries of living, earlier also in my previous presentation, I stated those are the books which showcase humanity, our own concerns, and what does Krishnaji had to say, at them. What depths he is speaking about addressing our common human problems. So I would like to share the screen here, the 10 points I written here. There are certain 10 points that came to my notice, and I also again I humbly acknowledge these are very very elementary kind of a understanding maybe, and I would request all the participants to also explore, think, and reflect, and we can do the common sharing of all these things. If other points, more valid points are coming to anybody's notice, they also can be shared at the end of the session. So first of all, I'll just read out the 10 segments and characteristics of thought that came to my notice. I think most of us also must have got familiar with this. First one is chattering mind. Second is fragmentation. Third is not this, that. And fourth one is pattern formation. And fifth one is what is and what should be. And next one is image making. Next is forming escapes, becoming, not being. And next, identification, comparison, measurement, desire, intent, and motive. So those are very commonly, I think most of us are quite aware of all these things. But today we'll just go into, little bit, in depth to discussing all these things. Unless and until we understand ourselves, the common human consciousness, vis-a-vis all these points where Krishnaji is throwing so much of focus and light upon, there is no way to further our understanding of these teachings. So we'll just go into from the beginning. There's the chattering mind. So I think in one of the texts I've been reading I think in the Rajamandri had given some talks, that is in early 70s or so. There we come across this chattering mind. He says mind by very nature, it's always has a, you can say, tendency to keep on reflecting on things, it's not even reflection, you can say, keep on getting thinking about so many things, and getting worried or you are all the time worried about your day-to-day concerns. And even if there are no concerns are there, even mind always has a chatter of maybe thinking about others, this and that. And ultimately we don't know from which thought it has started, because the mind's quality is that. So chattering is one quality, he says. So these are the qualities basically we find in ourselves, the common human consciousness. So unless and until that chattering mind, slows down a little bit and reflects on its own thing, why this kind of chattering is of no use, it's of no value, why this kind of thing is happening. So maybe there is a kind of a pause in it. So he says, uncluttered mind, the chattering mind can and cannot understand anything else. Something new to dawn in oneself. All these things need to take a kind of a backstage. So that's what I have to say about chattering mind. And the second one is inner fragmentation. So again, I would like to say this based on my own reflections or whatever I could sense in my own self. So I feel at any given point of time, every human being, maybe all of us, are not very decisive, are not very clear about what we want in life. So there are so many voices in us. They keep pulling us in all directions. Some like maybe from our childhood days, our parents influence us, and then afterwards our siblings, and when we go to the colleges and our schooling starts and all, then our friends and peers, they also influence us. So with the result, what happens? One doesn't know what one wants. So what others have said, what others have portrayed about us, what others think of us becomes so much important to us. And that leads to fragmentation, that, we want to be this, we want to be that, and ultimately we don't know what we want in life. So at different times, Krishnaji says, first of all, find out what are your interests, what are you passionate about. Then only you can think on serious things of life. And one more word, the seriousness is a word. He introduces so many new words and terminologies in his teaching. And seriousness is the one he uses very often. If one is serious to find out solution to all these things, to find out what it's all about, that seriousness is a quality he keeps on said repeatedly, he says. So then unless and until one understands what exactly one is, one wants, where does one stand in all these things, so the perception can't happen unless and until all the layers which have been covered in our own consciousness through different influences, maybe direct and conscious influences of our parents, and maybe he says maybe there are unconscious influences that had been getting carried on through ages. And he says conditioning is 5 million year old. We don't know what many unconscious influences we carry in our own selves. But all that he focuses our reflection again and again to these points. So that is inner fragmentation. And next one is not this and that. So this particular, you can say the characteristic or segment I came across when I was reading Pugul Jayat's biography of Krishnaji, and wherein he, in letters to young friend, I came across this particular, pointer. He says mind has the capacity never to all the time runs in directions. It doesn't value what it has, and it always wants that the other people's or other things are become more important or more attractive to us. And it is all the qualities of thought or brain that's been conditioned in us. So it never satisfied with what it has got, and it always wants that somewhere there maybe the common saying that comes to our mind, the common idiom, the saying we have been hearing, the grass on the other side is always green. So for us, I think it's very commonly seen, either it's in children or old people or younger, whatever, the other person's things, other things become more attractive and nice to us rather than what we have. And Krishnaji's teaching is more about understanding oneself, what one is, rather than understanding there. So somehow this particular statement, remained with me all these years. So I thought I need to put here. And next one is pattern formation. And Krishnaji says the thought has to have some patterns. Either I'm speaking from the experiences which as a lady or as a mother, as a housewife, what all I see, maybe people who have been living different kinds. So it's always whatever one's understanding is always very limited. It is never complete, and it is just by sharing all these common characteristics of thought that may lead to a greater understanding of human consciousness. So he says pattern formation. So for my understanding, I feel patterns is our behavior or the way we talk, the way we speak. Some patterns are very strongly get ingrained in us, and even our day-to-day routines also. So sometimes we forget, why we are doing all these things. What is the validity of it? What is the requirement of these things? Maybe you can say, the worshipping of the idols, or or maybe some people have the all these qualities of doing a particular thing again and again repeatedly, in a daytime. So unless and until we focus and attention to what we do in a day, how our mind acts, and are we accountable to each and of our actions, maybe that brings to the end of patterns. So have I been following a pattern? That's why I have been doing all these things. That means he says he doesn't give any other solution except being aware of them, except being cognizant of them, except being watchful of them. He says that very watchfulness, we don't know whether it really leads to bigger understanding, but he says being just watchful of them also, stops them in that great momentum and all that. And so the pattern formation, I feel, is a very important segment of thought, and we all fall in victims of. We're all victims of that pattern formation, and this is a constant watching. Maybe is asking us to, is directing our attention to again and again. And next one is what is and what should be. Here, kindly allow me to read a beautiful extract I came across in Krishnaji's books, that is Commentaries of Living first series. I think I have spoken enough. Now let us just see what Krishnaji had to say about this. Yeah, the very title of the, that chapter is What is and What Should Be. And I think I can just, this one. Yeah. So he says, when you say, there is before that I have to explain, what is the chapter about, what is and what should be. There is this lady who goes to Krishnaji, and she says she was leading a very unhappy life, and she got divorced from her husband. She had her children, and even after that she went for a holiday, but still she couldn't find happiness in her life. And she wanted to paint, but she was unable to do so. And with that confused state of mind, that means she was unhappy, she thought she could find some solution for that, she acted on them, but still she couldn't understand what was the problem that is gnawing at her, why she's not finding peace and happiness in her life. With that state of mind, she approaches Krishnaji. She asks him about that. And I just would like to read about the conversation, basically more of what Krishnaji had to say in that. So the title is What is and What Should Be. When you say you are in conflict, it must be in relation to something, in relation to your husband, to your children, to your activities. If, as you say, your conflict is not with any of these, then it can only be between what you are, what you want to be, between the actual and the ideal, between what is and the myth of what should be. This kind of and I think this kind of a insight or understanding, I think maybe we may not be able to arrive at. So he says, when there is a conflict, it's always in relation to something, either with your husband, with your children, or with life. Then, if you have gone through your conflict, and if you have gone through the problem, and if you have seen, and still you find that still conflict persists, then he gives a very insightful answer. That is, what is and what should be your own ideal. Your mind has created an ideal of what you have to be, and there is a conflict between these two. You are something, you're not that ideal, and you want to be something other than what you are. Between what is and the myth of what should be, you have an idea of what you should be, and perhaps the conflict and the confusion arise from the desire to fit into this self-projected pattern. So our own selves, they have this tendency to project patterns. So I think maybe that's also a very valid point. So maybe thought, it never wants to be, it wants to be what it has, never really religious what it is. And like somebody wants to be like, some beautiful actress is there, they want to be like that. If somebody is very successful in life, maybe they want to be like that. So in unconsciously, we may develop this kind of we may have this kind of ideals, and unknowingly they can happen the conflict. So you are struggling to be something which you are not. Is that it? So Krishnaji has asked this question. Now the lady is answering. I'm beginning to see where I'm confused. I think what you say is true. The conflict is between the actual and the myth, between that which you are and that which you would like to be. The pattern of the myth has been cultivated from childhood and has progressively widened and deepened. So he's giving the background of how the myth or the ideal has been there. maybe in the childhood days, the parents and all, if they keep on praising, somebody who is successful or doing very well, maybe some ideal is formed in one's mind, maybe not directly by themselves, to different influences, growing in contrast to the actual, and being constantly modified by circumstances. This myth, like all ideals, goals, utopias, is in contradiction to what is the implicit, the actual. So the myth is an escape from that which you are. Here he's also used the word escape. So the myth has become very important, and unconsciously you want to become that. And since you cannot become that, the conflict arises. So the myth is an escape from that which you are. This escape inevitably creates the barren conflict of the opposites. And all conflict, inward or outward, is vain, futile, stupid, creating confusion and antagonism. So, as long as the conflict is persisting in one's life, one cannot think straight. That conflict needs to be addressed. That conflict needs to be understood, and otherwise, mind doesn't have the capacity to understand any new thing. So if I may say so, your confusion arises from the conflict between what you are and the myth of what you should be. The myth, the ideal is unreal. It is a self projected escape. It has no actuality. The actual is what you are, and what you are is much more important than what you should be. So he says that is again an indication for us. If any problems are coming, are we living in the present, or are we the way we are, or we want something else to happen in our life? So this is an indication, and for us to focus on all these things, the segments of thought, and yeah, that's about that. Next one is image making. So I hope I'm not going, in a very random fashion, becoming monotonous also. There are a few more points I would just like to go into them. And the sixth one is image making. I feel this is a very strong quality of thought. Krishnaji, keeps giving us warnings also. He says our brain, it has a capacity to form image about everything, whether a person or whether a concept or an idea. It has to come out with its own opinions, its own judgments, its own evaluations, and we never able to see the things for what they are. Rather than we always see them through our judgments and our opinions, and even if otherwise also, like if you meet a person, if you have to interact with that person, so whatever the person behave in a particular way, that our mind forms a kind of a judgment and opinion, and that gets stored in our mind. And whenever we meet the person, maybe after some time, maybe after a few days, months or years, the image becomes important, and we never look at the person for what they are. The person might have been a different person, of what your perceptions of the person previously. So he says, time and again, he says, this is all the machinery of thought. It forms images, and it clings to them. And he says in close relationships also, like husband, wife, they never look at each other for what they are. They always form an image of what the person is based on their past hurt or knowledge or experiences, and that image gets carried away. And by reflecting on all these things, I don't think we can be completely out of them. It is just to bring our focus and attention to again and again these things. If we are aware of all of them, at least maybe we can see that we are slightly distancing ourselves from them. So that's the reason why I feel these kind of points need to be discussed, brought into the open. So that's the image making. And seventh one is forming escapes, becoming and not being. I feel all these are in the similar pattern. And Krishnaji's focus is all the time about what is. The present, the way you are, the moment, that is important. So how our minds all the time try to escape from that. Either thought has a capacity only to live in the past, mull over in the past, or it has a capacity to dream about the future. it doesn't know what to do in the present. That's why he says again and again, what is this one more important, what is this, what you are and the moment. So that's what my understanding is. So I'm it's open for discussion. Please you can contribute if other points are coming to your mind. So escapes, and then identification, comparison and measurement, desire, intent and motive. So these are all, I think, more or less in the similar category. So I think initially also he said, for doing any particular action, if it is one needs to be watchful of the desire and the intent and the motive. Is it out of some expecting some rewards one is doing that, or it's a natural curiosity and natural interest has ignited that that particular action in oneself. So one has to be watchful of that desire, intent, and the motive. What are the motives behind each and every action? So prominently, consciously, in day-to-day life, we may be aware of them, but maybe unconsciously, we may not be aware of them. We may not be very, very clear of them. So here, I would like to read, kindly allow me to read one more poignant text from the Krishnaji's books. This is again Commentaries of Living first series. And this is about problems and escapes. And he brings about a very incisive point, very insightful point, which otherwise we may not be able to understand. There is again one more lady who comes to Krishnaji. She says she's financially not very sound. She has a lot of children. Her husband had left her. And on top of that, she is having a hearing problem. And she says that hearing aid which she's using is a very hideous kind of a thing, she says. And she's in general, she's looking very unhappy, sorrowful, and very angry with herself. And she says, I have a lot of problems. So what am I going to do with them? So she approaches Krishnaji, and here very beautifully he brings out some points which otherwise wouldn't occur to us. That's why I just wanted to read out this text. The very topic of the very, the problems and escapes is the name of the chapter. Consciously or unconsciously, we refuse to see the essentiality of being passively aware, because we do not really want to let go of our problems. Look at this. We are immersed in problems, we complain about them, but we don't want to let go of the problems. For what would we be without them? We would rather cling to something we know, however painful, than risk the pursuit of something that may lead who knows where. So this is a very incisive point. He says we rather, thought has a, thought has only that much of capacity to know from known to known. So in order for thought to active in life, it has to have that what it knows, what it understands. So the problems and our day-to-day life, we have accepted them all as part of life. And for them, those are very important to us. So we don't want to let go of them. At the same time, we crib about them, we complain about them, and we want some savior to come and answer them. So he says, what would we be without them? We would rather cling to something we know, however painful, than risk the pursuit of something that may lead who knows where. So the fear is there. Here again is bringing the quality of fear. We are too scared to let go of our known, the problems. Because if we apply our mind, the solution comes, we don't know what to do with that. So this kind of a, very insightful and incisive kind of human consciousness we come across in Krishnaji's books, especially in this Commentaries of Living. So at least we are familiar, but the thought of pursuing the maker of them, not knowing where it may lead, creates in us fear and dullness. The mind would be lost without the worry of problems. It feeds on problems, whether they are world or kitchen problems, political or personal, religious or ideological. So our problems make us petty and narrow. So the mind already has become very petty and narrow. We love those problems when we talk about, the world problems, this and that. And he says that's all form of an escape, because ultimately when the problems are not there, the perceiver and the thinker will come into the scene, And maybe one is too scared to go in the direction at all. A mind that is confused with world problems is as petty as a mind that worries about the spiritual progress it is making. Problems burden the mind with fear, for problems give strength to the self, to the me, and the mind. Without problems, without achievements and failures, the self is not. So he's saying the self, which is a construct of the thought, it feeds on its own problems, because if it lets go of them, it doesn't know where it's going to land into. Just allow me to read one more paragraph. Inwardly and outwardly, it is easier to repress than to understand. To understand is arduous, especially for those who have been heavily conditioned from childhood. Although strenuous, repression becomes a matter of habit. Understanding can never be made into a habit, matter of routine. It demands constant watchfulness, alertness. To understand, there must be pliability, sensitivity, a warmth that has nothing to do with sentimentality. Suppression in any form needs to no quickening of awareness. It is the easiest and the stupidest way to deal with responses. Suppression is conformity to an idea, to a pattern, and it offers superficial security, respectability. Understanding is liberating, but suppression is always narrowing, self-enclosing. See, look, this kind of a looking or seeing, I think it's not possible for us only to when we read Krishnaji's text of this depth and intensity. Can we understand, how we can understand our own selves, the conscious, unconscious, subconscious problems. So he shows kind of a mirror to us, what is human being capable of, what he is. So I think this is my humble presentation for today. And yeah, there were other points are also there, measurement and comparison. I think they all fall into the same category. How our minds are always comparing, with this and that, and how thought is always measuring. If it has done this much, it is expected to get this much. That is thought. That is the measurement. It's a very nature of thought, and the comparison also. Our mind always compares. Whether I think we have become victims of that. If we just look into our own childhood days, our parents, they used to compare between the siblings. If one sibling is doing very well, the other one used to get the scolding from the parents. So with that, the parents also, from there the mistake starts happening. And the original talent and original caliber of the child is never is being noticed, given importance. Only the child, what the parents want the children to be, their expectations are given so much of importance. From there the problems may start, I think. And when we become parents, I think we also do the same thing. If you have two children, invariably, I had done that so many times with my own daughters. But I think reading all these things, at least, you become aware of them. You don't blatantly commit to your mistakes. That's what Krishnaji's teaching does to us. It just maybe puts some kind of a brakes on our natural, usual tendencies and all, because the stream of thought and stream of conditioning is not so easy to be out of it. Krishnaji himself says time and again. So these are all the few points I just would like to discuss today. And if it has become a bit monotonous, my apologies for that. And thank you very much for this patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Durgaji. I think you have put it up very beautifully, very clearly, and very simply.
Thank you, sir.
I think the structure of thought has been placed very well. I'm reminded of a statement Krishnaji made in a book called The Only Revolution, where he is talking about completely listening to something that is being said. And he said to a gentleman that we don't listen completely without measurement. That creates problems for us. And he said, if I listen completely, will that remove the problem? And then he said, I go to my mother-in-law and she speaks lots of things which are, I don't like it at all. So if I listen to her completely, will that all be over? And Krishnaji said, if you listen completely without measurement, either you will not do anything or you will walk out of that place. Both are right actions. I think it's very important
Yes, yes.
to watch our reactions when we are listening, because that is very important. And as you have rightly said, thought, I mean, even though it's a very good instrument, the only instrument we have in our life,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
which solves most of our problems, it also creates so many problems
Yes.
in the physical realm. Yes. Thank you so much. I think Harshad Bhai wants to say something. Yes, sir. Unmute.
Yes, are you able to hear?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Durga Rani. You
Thank you,
spoke
sir.
very well presented your talk with quite a relaxed mind, and I enjoyed listening to you. One comment I want to make is that somewhere Krishnaji said that to go far, one must begin with what is near,
Yes.
and the near is our own self. So if we want to understand other human beings, we have to understand ourselves first. And if we are very clear, then we can really listen to everyone without forming any images, ideas, judgment, comparison, and so on. And initially, what you said about thinker and thought, that really I found it I became very curious when I read in Krishnamurti's, the first book which I came to read, that was The Flight of the Eagle. And in that, Krishnaji said, thought creates the thinker, and then thinker tries to change thought. And then there is this duality between thinker and thought. And all our psychological problems come because of this duality. And so when I read that, I became very curious. And I had time, and I wanted to verify what Krishnamurti was saying, that if everything is, our problems are coming from thinking, and from thinking comes the thinker. So when I really, with all my energy, attention, curiosity, I try to observe the beginning of a thought, thinking stopped actually. And it was wonderful to feel that sense of no thinking, a kind of a silent awareness. And so I felt that, yes, Krishnamurti is quite right, because our problems are arising because we are not able to observe what is happening within us, and we are having many problems, and we go round and round in thinking only, and we have not really come out from the thinking to see how thinking is operating. And so what Krishnaji calls choiceless awareness is the real thing, and it means one has to come out from thinking to observe thinking clearly. And then we can even see the beginning of anger or fear or any other problem. And this is what I learned from Krishnaji. And you mentioned about commentaries on living. Yes, those are the best books in my view also, because it tells everything about what human beings, different human beings are going through with different kinds of problem, but the source is always one. And the source is this me or I, which
Yes,
comes
sir.
from thinking.
Yes,
And
sir.
so one has to come out, observe thinking from a different dimension than thinking. And then everything becomes very clear. And then what Krishnamurti says, we say, yes, it's quite true. It's quite obvious what Krishnamurti is saying. Otherwise, people they say that Krishnamurti is very complicated, very difficult to understand. But the complications are not in teachings. Complications are within us, and we don't know how to sit quietly and observe ourselves. Okay, so I have said enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I just would like to say
Yeah.
I think, yeah, nicely you put it that way. And I think that is very important, sir. Like, the forming of some kind of a connection with what Kay is saying. Like when you read Krishnaji, when especially he projects so much about world problems. Like I used to hear so much, my own friends, when I used to discuss these things, they used to ask, we don't see those many problems. Why he's all the time talking in such a sad tones? Life is not like that. You do come across those kind of statements, and it's not easy to get into all this mode in the initial stages. They very commonly I used to get, because initially when I got connected with the books, very joyfully, or with a great mood, I wanted to share with everybody, discuss and all. And when I used to say about wars and and human problems, they say, we don't see, we are not worried about wars. If they are happening somewhere, why are we bothered? You know, and why does he all the time say about all these things? This kind of a responses I used to get, and you also wonder, because all that kind of an understanding, I think it in order to settle in, it takes time, sir. Of course, we are not speaking about the time in Krishnaji's words. Krishnaji says there is no time, and if we really go by those statements, again we are lost. And he says, begin where you are. If you have to begin where we are, as a person, as a human being, with whatever limited intelligence I have, I need to start from there. And then so it I according to me, it really takes a lot of time and maturity and maybe years of experiences. And we don't know when something clicks and something dawns in us, because it's not like in a like intellectual discussions or debates where one can score a point, or one can come with some erudite presentation. It's not about that. He's speaking about our own common life, our own lives, our own existence. We may commit a lot of errors. There may be 100 flaws in each and every one of us. But then when we start understanding, reflecting, maybe our understanding starts ripening up or opening up, and maybe we start taking baby steps or whatever we are. So that's what I say. I completely agree with what you are saying, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Durga. I think instead of calling time, you can say preparation. That would be perhaps more apt.
Yes, yes, sir,
Because
yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir.
it takes time
Maybe.
to reach that stage where we can really imbibe what
Yes,
he is
sir.
talking about.
Yes,
So,
sir. Maybe uncluttering and,
yes, yes,
uncluttering of the mind.
yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are watching your thoughts
Yes,
clearly
sir.
and so on.
Yes.
That could be the preparation. Yes.
And initially, people are scared also. And even this question used to occur to me, how can watching be a solution? First of all, he projects so many problems in our lives, and he says watching is the solution. And a lot of people say, how can watching be a solution? How am I going to do? You know, so it is not easy. There are so many paradoxes and ironies, implicit in ourselves and also in understanding of Krishnaji. So these are all not easy to, these are like hard nuts to crack, sir. That's what I have to say, sir. Yes.
I think you're right. Seeing ourselves is the biggest problem. Yes,
Yes,
Kalyan.
yes, yes.
Kalyan, go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, ma'am. It
Good
was
afternoon. Yes.
a nice presentation.
Thank
So,
you.
in terms of preparation, I'd like to explore more. Are you talking about the preparation in the psychological domain as well, or
Uh,
is it action wise? It's a preparation.
I'm talking about the physical world, like we are always in a hurry, multitasking things and so on. So
Yes.
can I slow down in my daily life? There shouldn't be any hurry in finishing something that I'm doing. If I'm mopping my floor, can I do it slowly, watch every corner, and there's no rush to finish it off? Or if I'm pressing my clothes, can I just watch
Yes.
my thoughts and slowly do it? What happens is that we go to a place, if it is new, we are so much attentive by the flowers, by the building and so on, and you start living there, then the energy doesn't flow. You don't even notice. You just walk by looking down and go by. So I think for the mind to be attentive, it's important to slow down in our daily life so that the energy can flow at times again. It's true with children. You tell them a joke or show them a toy, they'll be very happy. And just half an hour again, later you show them again, they'll be equally happy. But we create images and then I know it. That's the kind of thing. Even in question and answer, before the question is over, I already have answered for it. So can I just listen? Just listen without anything.
Yeah, I
This
think
is
Yeah.
what by preparation. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sir, like to understand this a little more. Like when we talk about this preparation, is it coming out of a planning, or is it just emerging? Like when there is a clarity in the psychological domain, then the action slows down as an emergence. If we are slowing down the action, the physical world with a planning, then there is an involvement in the psychological domain, which is again from a known domain. Are
Uh,
you able to understand? Like if we are
I-
proposing a child or any individual that slow down your action, then isn't that a planning that we are proposing?
it should start with a plan. I think it start with curiosity. It should start with a sense of inquiry. That I have been
Yes.
reading Christie's for so many years. How come nothing changes in my life? So I want to watch my actions. I want to watch my thoughts.
So it comes back to the psychological domain, which happens instantly.
Absolutely.
And the action slows down as a byproduct.
Absolutely.
Are you seeing? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, sir. I just would like to add, I think Dubey sir has answered you very well. And I think if we, without bothering about psychological world also, like, if we do anything paying more attention to any job that is at hand, leave out your own children. Like if you're eating, if you're not in a great rush to eat and finish it off and go running, because that's how our lives have become so mechanical, and there's always great rush. Because if you don't hurry up, you will be stuck in the traffic. All these things will be there. For that, if I can plan, with I think with a little bit of doing things in a quieter way with a proper pause, I think our life also becomes much more happy and saner days we may come across. Because why this kind of a rush? Okay, if I have to hurry up for the traffic, then can I wake up? That's what he says. He discusses in few other texts also. That is the preparation. Can I wake up early so that I will have more time for all these things, so that I can finish off my jobs in peace? So not doing things in great hurry, great rush, all the time running after something. Where is the time for me to reflect on anything else? Okay, we have to do our lives, we have to do our jobs, we have to live our lives, all the responsibilities we need to shoulder on. But can that be, for that, can we give more focus, more attention what we are doing it, rather than doing in great haze, great hurly burly fashion? That's all he's asking. Whatever your activities, can you prepare them in a proper way, so that you will have time for each and everything? Do your actions in thoroughly, completely. That's what he says. In a day, if your action is complete, if you have done if you attend to any particular task completely, then that won't remain in your unconscious. The thing is, why our subconscious or unconscious is so heavily burdened, because we never pay attention to any one particular thing in a day in our life. Because all these been are fed into our minds. You have to, your job, your salary, your kids, their schooling, they're going to the better schools, you wanting to have so many other things in life. This all societal pressures, automatically they got induced in us. But can we just reflect on them, see them, and plan them in a way, so that things are not done in such a great you can say like with proper pause, so that there will be time for some other things to reflect upon. That's all he's saying.
Thank you, Durga. Thank you.
Yes.
I think mind is the brain is very lazy. If you have seen somebody today, if he comes tomorrow, we don't want energy to flow to find out if there is a change in his face or whatever. It creates an image and then acts accordingly. So I think the mind has to be tamed. The mind has to be tamed, not in a rush. It has to be quiet. And you can't suddenly decide that I'm going to be quiet from tomorrow. It has to be a slow process. That is what I meant by preparation. Yes. Any more comments, questions? Anandji?
planning.
Shakti ji wants to say, Anand ji, then Shakti.
Did I put up my hands? Anyway, sir. I mean,
You usually ask questions, no, sir. That's why automatically.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. But sir, please, sir, my humble request is I don't have any answers, sir.
No,
You're just sharing.
I'm not looking for answers, ma'am. I just put questions. About
yes,
all. The moment I'm looking for an answer again, I'm in trouble. That is what case says.
Yes,
so
sir.
Solutions are, in fact, we talk about solutions. Solutions are a problem. If I understand the question, that's what it is. And someone said, learn from K. So again, can I see that I make him an authority when I say I learn from K? We need to be very careful, sir. I mean, when we talk about all these things, even sir said, when somebody went and spoke about his problems with his mother-in-law, he said, either you stay quiet or you leave. I think the moment he said that, I'm sure, he's not very serious about it. In understanding, there is its own action. Even K cannot say what it's going to be at that point in time. Yes. So probably, I think I need to go through it. He may have joked, or in the lighter vein, he would have said that. That's about all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Bindu wants to say something. Would you unmute yourself, Bindu? Where are you? Kamlesh ji, would you unmute Bindu ji? Okay, we'll take some other time. We'll go to Harshad Bhai, then Shakti ji, then Shankar Rao. Yes, Harshad Bhai, please.
Yes, when I started reading Krishnamurti for the first time many years ago, I had no dialogues with people around because there was nobody who was interested in Krishnamurti in the university in America and in Canada. Then when I joined Rishi Valley School in 1979, then we had many dialogues, and we used to have many conferences organized by the Krishnamurti Foundation. And in those dialogues, what I found is that people who are interested in Krishnamurti teachings, many of them, they become very, very emotional, very argumentative. Sometimes they fight among themselves for some topic or some opinion. So I used to feel that why it is like that, that if a person has really understood felt the essence of the teachings, then there will be a real listening, not fighting, quarreling over ideas. And so there is a danger I find in Krishnamurti's teachings that many people are becoming very proud of their understanding. It may be intellectual understanding, because real understanding, there is no need to fight over any idea. We listen to each other, and these dialogues, which are arranged by Indore group, I think they are going on very well, because we are on Zoom and we are separated from each other, and we allow the person to speak completely, and then somebody else gets the chance. So it is well organized. But many public dialogues in conferences, I saw that there was not much patience in the listener, and without listening properly, people like to speak a lot. And that created, even in America, I attended in Ohio dialogues, and initially it used to be very good, but then it used to become very emotional, and then somebody was asked to leave the conference because it was getting too much argumentative. So yes. I feel that when we really understand ourselves by reading Krishnamurti, then it affects everything which we do, how we listen, how we look, how we speak, and it has to do with everything which we do in our daily life, and it affects our relationship with people around, with nature, and with our own self. So, okay, I have said enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, can I just
Yes.
for a while?
Sure.
So I also have to give a lot of appreciation for the organizers of this group, sir. Last time also I made it a mention. It's been a year I have been participating in this, and I think all the appreciation and the kudos go to the organizers for conducting these sessions in such a beautiful way. And I already said in the beginning. And this is very important, sir, where people each listen to each other in a very calm and peaceful way, and there is a sharing of understanding rather than making points or sharing of opinions. So my appreciation again completely for this organizers of this group, sir, and to Dubey sir and Sunil Jain and who other faces we keep hearing, Mr. Modak and all of you. So my complete appreciation for this, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Durga. Shakti ji, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. My voice is coming, sir.
Yes, quite clear.
Yeah. Yes. I just wanted to say something about this question of slowing down or the pace. You see, if I am inattentive, if there is inattention, I need to decide about the pace. But if there is attention, then that attention decides the pace. That this is one thing which I wanted to share. Because what happens that if I am walking from here to there, even in this very small act, if there is inattention, it will be different. And if there is attention, I have noticed that then it is neither fast nor slow. It is something very different. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shakti. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Shankar, please.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Even I was also about to speak on the same thing what Mr. Shakti has said. See, it's not the question of slowing down. See, while you're mopping a floor or whatever, it's whether you are thinking about something while mopping. Suppose why I'm saying this is, if I mop the floor in 2 minutes, if it is fast, then if I mop in 4 minutes, is it slow? If I mop in 6 minutes, is it slow? It's not like the time factor and all that. While mopping, whether I'm paying attention to what I'm doing, suppose I'm mopping with a wet cloth, whether I'm feeling the feel of that wetness in my hand, whether I'm paying attention to what I'm doing, that is more important. If you're continuously thinking about something and mopping the floor, that is what is not, that is wrong. So that is what we are trying to say. Pay attention to, as Shakti ji used Krishnamurti's words like attention or attention. I'm using the word thinking. That's only different. So it's not that slowing down. If you are paying full attention and you're doing fast, that's fine. It's not slowing down, and that's all I want to clarify. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. Thank you. Mr. Pradeep Verma, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay. So most important to me is whether a teacher can induce in children or students the importance of self-knowing, so that they can see in themselves their potential skills and talents that need to be developed further. This is possible only to me when there is communion with students. I really appreciate your enthusiasm, Madam Durga, in this noble profession of teaching, because we are all students of life. some adult students, some children, you had an experience, experiential learning. If you can share with us some of these things, whether this can be induced in all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Verma ji. Thank you.
No, what exactly is the question, sir?
Whether,
what?
I will
Uh-huh.
repeat it. I will repeat
Uh-huh.
it. The question is
Yes, sir.
simple enough. Whether a teacher can induce in children or students the importance of self-knowing so that they can see in themselves potential skills and talents that need to be developed further. We are all students of life.
Yes, sir. That is
So,
there, sir.
since you had an experiential learning in teaching a noble profession, will you share something with us? Thank you.
Oh, that's a very major question you're asking, sir. I think it's giving time to the child. I raised my own 2 daughters, so there is nothing called the best or the rule book kind of a thing, sir. I think be patient with. I think we read so much about Krishna ji is addressing to the students, and there are books to the schools and all. He says just pay attention to the child and see for what they are, and observe them and give them your love, guidance, and affection, and as do the best what you can do, rather than putting your own ideas into them and making them ask questions. Recently, my granddaughter was here, so I was telling my daughter, I think just because by reading books of Krishnaji and discussing them, I think it's all a learning process, sir. We are work in progress, maybe. And here you take some tip here, some point there, and you try to amalgamate it in your day-to-day life. So my granddaughter was asking me that question, why do you only 2 people of you are there in the house? Why do you have to get your house clean every day? Whereas we are in America, we only get it clean once in a month. That's such a simple question, but still, I appreciated the quality of her asking question. Asking questions is more important, sir. Whether they can be very simple questions, very random questions. So I feel that's what Krishnaji also always asked. Ask questions, and but our minds, portray some bigger ideas. Basic awareness, basic awareness of what we see all around us. I think my understanding of Krishnaji is only that, sir. Looking at simple things in life, simple things in us, the day-to-day issues. The thing is, we make Krishnaji into a very big, larger than life picture. If we are making them, then he remains like that only. For me, it's like, it always works like that, sir. So I used to do that with my kids, and when I used to teach, of course, when I taught in the schools, it was 40 students in one class. How much you can do in 1 hour, sir? So that was a different issue. When the children, you are close by, your own family or friends, and so just give them space, affection, care, and be watchful of what they're doing. And if you feel something to be encouraged, you encourage them. And more than anything else, I feel, developing this habit of questioning about everything, sir, that's very important. I feel that's important for all of us also, sir.
Thank you.
I hope I answered. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Durga ji. I think I just want to add to what Pradeep ji asked. I think, sir, being a part of a school for 13, 14 years, I think we should start from ourselves rather than the child. Whether I'm watching myself, whether I'm having self-knowledge about what I am. If you start from there, then you start looking at a child the way he is. Don't compare him. Don't measure his.
Exactly, sir. Exactly. Because my exploration in JK's teaching is actually self-exploration.
Exactly. Absolutely.
It is that.
Absolutely.
Nothing else.
Yes, we'll go to Mr. Dinesh Waghmare. Unmute, Dinesh.
Are you able to listen to me, madam?
Yes, sir. Dinesh, sir, in fact, I was wondering, you haven't raised your hand so
No,
much.
I don't have any question, madam. First of all, I would like
Sir, I always feel scared of you. You ask so many questions and we
madam,
don't.
no, rest assured. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for such a good presentation. Good.
Oh, thank you
your-
very much, sir.
Yeah.
This is a comment you usually don't give to anybody.
Yeah, normally,
you, sir.
I don't give any such comments.
Yes,
But
sir.
your presentation was very serious, very honest, very systematic, and I personally feel that in today's time, such should be the presentation. You have given point-wise explanation, and you have shown the right points basically. So any beginner or any new person who wants to go into Krishnamurti's teaching, this should be the way to show him that he can start from where he can start, and he can go in details if he wish.
Thank you
Because
very much, sir.
whatever
This is a big
other,
compliment.
and the main important
Yes.
point is you have stick to the subject. You're not gone every here and there. So that was the. I think your presentation was really very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll go to Mr. Nagabhushanam and then to Anandji. Yes, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I'm just addressing Mr. Pradeep's query. It certainly is possible, as you have also shared your examples, that when one is in inquiry with oneself, and when we are dealing with children, we can definitely create an atmosphere where inquiry is going on, whether it is a subject or subject of ourselves. I think that is when the child begins to understand the relevance of inquiry, which I think we did get that from Krishnamurti when he was talking to students, because he was talking to more than 200, 300 children. And when we heard, we got the spirit of it, and that spirit led us to continue inquiring within us. So if it is possible for us to create an atmosphere in the classroom, inquire through the subject that you are dealing with, whatever the subject could be, then it is possible for children to explore within and explore outside. So that explorative mind is alive. You don't have to develop it. It is already there. So if my relationship, my interaction, my approach helps sustaining the inquiry process, then I have already helped the child to learn about oneself, question, and understand. So this I have seen in many classrooms where I'm also teaching. I also help teachers to kind of integrate inquiry into the teaching process. This I've been doing for several years, and I do see it is very, very effective.
Very well
Thank you,
said,
sir.
sir. Very
Thank
well
you,
said.
thank you.
Very
Thank
well
you,
said.
thank you.
Yes.
I think, sir, it is important to put the seed of inquiry in the child's mind and don't expect a result. Let it take its own time to flower. That is very important. And that will come from teachers who are seriously interested in inquiry. That is very important. That is very important. We'll take the last question. It's almost time now. Anandji, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. I mean, when we're talking about teaching students or teaching someone else, I need to understand learning never ends. So, I mean, it's a continuous process. The moment as I'm a teacher, I'm against a wall. I'm lost. So, or I want to see the student to do well, or he has to be a good son. I mean, it is again, I'm completely lost. I need to understand. It's only when there's care, affection, and love, there is right action, sir. I can use a lot of words. I can say I did this to my son, my daughter, and the students. I made them good or bad or whatever it is. I need to understand without being a sensitive being, a being with care and affection and love, it is not possible, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anandji. There is in chat box, there is a message from Uma Alluri. She wants to know Durga Rani's phone number. So Durga, you can type it out here.
Yeah. Okay, sir, sure.
You can type it out. And thank you, Durgaji, for being with us today. It was a very nicely placed presentation. We enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And next week on Sunday, we'll have Santi Bogni. He is an Italian. You have heard him once or twice earlier. So he'll be here on next Sunday at 11 o'clock. And Durga, Shanti is going to talk about in praise of the limit. In praise of the limit. So if you're free, please do join us next Sunday to listen to Santi Bogni. Santi is a regular visitor in Rajghat and has been donating quite a lot of money to the rural school. He is not rich himself, but he arranges donation through rich Italians. So this is introduction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dubeji. Thank you, Dubeji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody,
And-
sir. Thank you.
And ma'am, appreciation is your habit. Appreciation doesn't work for me. Send something else to me.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Thank
Sure,
Thank
sir.
you.
Love
That's
and affection.
very good observation, sir.
Ma'am,
Very
it's
good,
love and
very good
affection.
observation. Yeah.
But Sushil Jain sir, your efforts are really remarkable. Huh? No two opinion about it.
You two, Waghmare, you two have used the same tool of appreciation. So I also appreciate you.
Nice, Sunil sir. You
Thank
have
you.
real piercing mind. Good observation, sir. Very nice, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Thank you everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Kamlesh ji, please end it.